Welcome everybody to our second episode of our podcast. We haven't edited and put the first podcast up online yet, but we are still recording the second one. My name is Rohit, and as usual, we have Sushant and Shrujal, my classmates, with us. And today we have a really special guest, one of my favorite Ayurvedic doctors. Her name is Dr. Chaithanya. She originally comes from the state of Kerala in the south of India, which is known to be like the Mecca for Ayurveda. She's nodding her head, and she has a unique education. So she has a undergraduate degree in Ayurveda, and she's also having a master's degree in psychology, clinical psychology. And since 2017 she has been traveling in various cities in Germany and to introduce people to this new style of a new system of health, and also offer Ayurvedic consultations and provide remedies and things like that. I have been consulting with her, I think, from 2017 itself, and I've had amazing health benefits after my consultations. And I am someone who is super fascinated with the concept of Ayurveda, and I was very sure that if somebody had introduced me to it before I did engineering, I would have become an Ayurvedic doctor. But that's where things stand. So the idea for today's podcast is, although I have some basic knowledge of Ayurveda, my classmates are super new to it. So we wanted to do an episode on something like Ayurveda for Dummies, where it's just two people who are new to it, are really curious about it, and we have an expert who is going to enlighten us a little bit about Ayurveda today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We are really happy to have you here. And with this, I give not a stage, but I give the setting to my classmates, and they're going to take over for today.
This is Sushant, and I'll be handling the first portion of the questioning interview. So the nation wants to know. The nation wants to know. We'll start with a few simple questions. So why did you choose Ayurveda over the other modern medicine?
Okay. So I never wanted to study medicine in the first place. I'm not a medicine personality.
Okay.
So I wanted to do something related to arts or literature. And then I ended up doing a talk in my school for Ayurveda. That was also because I ran out of all topics, because I had a big class of like 80 people, and 79 of them took all the contemporary, sensitive, intelligent topics, and I completely ran out of something. So I made sure that I speak about something which people don't understand. So I took Ayurveda, and while I was preparing for the talk, so it was an English a language class talk. So the content didn't really matter. The way you presented was being judged upon, and the proficiency you have over the language. So the content was not important. But then I prepared quite well for the whole thing. So rather than focusing on the proficiency of the language in the presentation, I just started going deep into the content. And that was an aha moment. I really enjoyed what I read, the literature that I collected for it, the people that I interacted with while I was preparing this content for the talk. That's when I liked it.
Okay.
And then, so I had it in the back of my mind after school, maybe, I should at least get into a circle of people who are into this, not considering myself being a part of it. And then the real decision to pursue it came not because of my interest in the subject, to pursue it as a career, but because I was bored living in Kerala with my parents. So it was just this, millennial thought of a Mallu girl to just go out and explore the world. And I needed a strong reason for that. So I picked up one of the best colleges in India, which was in Bangalore. Related to Ayurvedic studies. So my method of convincing my parents was that, see, this college is a great college. It's run by the Art of Living Foundation. So they already associated with the foundation, so they couldn't say no.
Okay.
So that was why I did that, because Art Film Foundation didn't have any other colleges at that time. So I went to study it. I met the greatest of teachers of India. So they kind of generated an interest in the subject. But then the whole paradigm shift came when I started interning with some legendary physicians of India. So that was when what I read in the book started becoming the walk. You walk the talk kind of a situation, and that's when slowly I developed interest. So it was kind of a crash landing that made me take up the course, but it was very gradual onset of interest in the field. Yeah.
Wow.
No, that was a very good question.
No, that was
A very good answer.
wow. That was a very motivating answer. Now I regret doing engineering, dude. Now I feel I should have done Ayurvedic medicine.
You'll feel that by the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
I hope
I
so.
already started feeling it. That's the thing. Okay. So, what are the major difference in approaches to medicine of Ayurveda, Allopathy and Homeopathy? And when would you prefer one over the other?
Very interesting question. So now this differentiation depends on the land, like on the country, and the traditional system of approach or healthcare persisting in that country. So India is a country which really respects and gives a space to all kinds of medical practices in the world, the mainstream and the alternative. So in India you find allopathy, which is a licensed system of practice, as well as homeopathy, where you are a licensed homeopath practitioner, as well as an Ayurveda person who has a licensed medical practice with them if they've graduated from a college. Now, but in other countries, let's take for example Germany. Germany is a birthplace of allopathy and homeopathy. But you cannot become a registered practitioner of medicine in homeopathy in Germany. You only become a higher practica, which is an alternative science practitioner if you are a homeopath. So, when you say how do you compare or you see them, there's actually nothing much that you can really compare as, something is better than the other thing. No, it's not, because all of them, they're good in certain aspects, certain criterias and certain sectors of healthcare. So, yeah. Like for example, Ayurveda is very, very effective in preventive system of healthcare and also management of chronic conditions. Whereas allopathy is really excellent when it comes to management of acute conditions.
Okay.
And then homeopathy, again, more or less in the direction of Ayurveda. So it's very difficult to compare them because, the enthusiasts of each field will definitely try to put down the other science. You find Ayurvedic orthodox enthusiasts who say every other science is wrong, ours is the only truth. But then the challenges are not all the herbs and resources are available everywhere to treat. Even if you have great resources on treating acute conditions or emergency critical situations, but you don't have the resources, now what do? So allopaths say Ayurveda is just a bogus, there's nothing in there, plant medicine is always a bogus topic, it's just healers and blah blah blah. And homeopaths still struggle to find their place in either here or there. So the enthusiasts will always try to criticize the other, but the intelligent are the ones who studies the approach of each and takes what is important at that point of time at the best interest of their patient. So all of them, for that sake, I would say, comes to aid.
Okay. Yeah.
And what was the next question? I forgot.
Yeah, when would you prefer one over the other? You answered that.
Yeah, so generally in acute conditions, it's always good to take the advice of a
Allopathic.
allopath. Yeah, multiple advices of allopaths. Not all of them always right, but still. And then in chronic management of conditions, where you have the time, where you have the effort, and where you are ready to, patiently work out an issue, example lifestyle disorders, it's always good to go to Ayurveda or indigenous systems of medicine, including homeopathy. Because if you, in simple words, you can say if you want a quick symptom fix, allopathy helps you. But if you want to treat a condition from the chronic situation, finding the root cause and fixing the healing mechanism of the body, then alternative science is always a little higher in grade when it comes to prevention and management of chronic conditions.
So, does allopathy only treat the symptom, not the underlying cause? Or
Well, I won't say they only treat symptoms. They also look for underlying causes.
Yeah.
That's definitely there. But their approach is dominated by suppressing or managing a symptom. So their understanding of a condition in terms of healing is when you are asymptomatic.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas for Ayurveda or homeopathy, you being asymptomatic right now is not necessarily a criteria of calling you healthy.
okay, okay.
Mhm.
So it just shows that the symptoms are not seen outside, but there might be something.
Always,
Okay.
always. So you having a great blood report does not make you healthy.
Okay,
So that's the approach of Eastern sciences. Whereas you being asymptomatic can be called as healthy by an allopath. So if you go to your doctor and you ask them how to remain healthy, they won't be really able to help you. But if you really have a symptom, then they can fix you well. So the investment of becoming healthy is in finding the right way of living based on the philosophies or the narratives or paradigms of allied sciences. Whereas when you're sick, management wise, allopathy comes to your rescue in most of the conditions.
wow, that was very a diplomatic answer. I would say.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. I mean, you are not like those vocal supporters, like putting down the other sciences.
No,
like,
no,
you
I
just
never
very,
do that. Because I think to really say only this is the way,
Yeah.
you need to really know the whole secrets of a science.
Yeah,
No, so
exactly.
I'm still a student, so
Exactly.
I still have this, 50-50. Like I like both of them. Let's go in peace kind of an approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. But belief-wise, I'm more an Ayurvedist than an allopathist. Yeah. But I do support both. Maybe after 10 years I'll change. I'll say only Ayurveda is the way. But I'm yet to reach there,
Yeah. Good. So the next question is, so as you said, it's more for treating chronic illnesses. You'd prefer Ayurveda.
And
So
preventive medicine.
and preventive medicine. So the underlying philosophy is prevention is better than cure, right?
Yes.
And so, are there cases where Ayurveda serves as a cure better than the Western style of medicine?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Can you give some cases?
Examples. Okay. So, so for example, we can take a simple condition, rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis, or gouty arthritis, the three general kinds of arthritis that you find. So here, most of the management is done in terms of pain, and
Yeah,
inflammatory symptom control.
Yeah.
So they can put you on a painkiller and they can give you any kind of steroidal or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications that controls the symptoms of inflammation, in which pain is again included. So, and these medications has to be continued for the entire life, because once you are diagnosed with a degenerative disease, rheumatoid or non-rheumatoid, the inflammation tendency is going to be there in you. So your medications can go for years. Like I know many rheuma patients who've been taking medications for like 10, 11, 12 years, and then eventually they'll find out there is drug toxicity in different organs, and then you have to put another pill on top. So every time you increase the dose of the medication because they're getting resistant to it, and then to support a complication you add one more pill on top. So by the time you have a chronic condition, let's say 5-year-old case of rheumatoid arthritis, they have a big box, a lunch box full of medications, pills that they have to pop up now, and nobody pays any attention to what they eat, what their routines should be, what's the condition of their mind, like how stable are they in their mind, because gone are the days when diseases were only somatic in origin. Now you have an additional chapter to medicine which speaks about psychosomatic diseases. And interestingly, those array of diseases which came only in the somatic spectrum now is slowly finding their place. They're fighting for their positions in psychosomatic spectrum. So the thing is, nobody pays attention to these factors. And during my years of working with different kinds of rheumatoid spectrum patients, I've seen that going the way of Ayurveda, like what you call as holistic healing, you attend to your body and dimensions beyond your body, which you cannot comprehend in terms of sensations or even maybe vocabulary, because you do not sense the presence of them, but you kind of have a hypothetical understanding. For example, your breath, your mind, your memory, your ego, intellect or spirit or whatever. So giving an attention to factors inclusive of their body, helping them rearrange their entire life of nutrition and routines and stress management in the direction of healing has proved more fruitful.
Okay.
Making them non-dependent on a symptomatic treatment and at the same time being able to reduce the symptoms to more than 70 to 80%, so their functionality can come back.
Okay.
It doesn't have to increase in terms of chronicity. Of course, you may not be able to cure a condition because Ayurveda is not a magical science. It's a very sensitive and intelligent science. Scientific method of approach is existing there. So it does not say chronic illnesses can be treated and
Completely
eradicated.
removed. Okay.
No, it also understands disease's intensity in terms of its chronicity. So if you have a 1-year-old case of rheuma, it's easier for us to treat and fix it than a 5 or 10-year-old rheuma. But then you can be independent of a symptomatic supportive medicine and you can delay the progression of the disease.
Okay.
And make yourself more independent in your daily life than being dependent on support systems, be it medications or people or whatever, crutches or anything. So this is one example I've seen. Like the teachers that I've worked with, I've seen them treating these cases of rheumatoid arthritis, taking them out of steroidal medications, osteoarthritis, preventing knee replacement surgeries and fixing the joint mobility very well. Gouty arthritis completely in control, asymptomatic and in control without any inflammations, not being under the support of any medication. So I've seen them really fixing the cases, fixing the conditions far better than the way modern medicine would treat it.
So the steroid usage has completely been reduced to zero for those kinds of systems.
Many of them. I would say I can confidently say 80% of cases has been. I've personally witnessed them improving.
So let's say a person is shifting from the allopathic style to an Ayurvedic style. What would be a duration of that?
It depends on at what stage they come to you. There are some kind of people who will try allopathic medication for half of their life, complicate everything and then come to Ayurveda.
Okay.
Now it's obviously difficult because you don't know which to work on, the disease or the drug toxicity or their tired mind, no hope situation. You don't know really what to work on. So that's a challenge for us as well. But there's another kind of group, the second group, which are more into the direction of Ayurvedic way of living, and they first come to Ayurvedic sciences to take treatment. So this kind of people who immediately come after diagnosis are far easier to treat than the ones that have tried, waited and increased the complexity and the chronicity of the disease. So now if you say about the criteria, well, number one is the earlier they come, the better it is.
Okay.
Number two is the lesser they're medicated, the better it is. Number three is if they're really willing to take all the pain of eating right, leaving all their favorite food, doing the routines that the doctors say, going through the difficult phase of, cleaning and getting laundried in the system.
Okay.
These are the criteria we need to fulfill to get results from Ayurveda. It's not definitely a comfortable science for patients.
Yeah. It's more about who's willing to change their lifestyle and
who's willing to change their food habits, who's willing to really go through the pain of all the detox programs, drinking the bitter medicines and all this, so they get their result.
Yeah. So generally, if a person who's coming fresh off the boat and not under the influence of all those Western medicine, and immediately after the diagnosis, he comes to an Ayurvedic treatment. Yeah. So how long would that take? I mean, Okay, let's take this rheumatoid arthritis itself as a case. And generally, because I'm asking this because there's a notion that Ayurveda takes a long time for a solution to happen.
Which is completely stupid, I would say, because it's not really, like how people say it takes a long time to fix things. One thing is, if you come with a hereditary cause, like if your parents have been suffering from this condition, then you come and sit in Ayurveda and it's going to take you time because it's already in your genes. Number two, if you come in a chronic situation, you have a problem. But if you're in an acute situation, then it heals faster depending on at what age you got it. What's the strength of the disease? What is the spread of the disease? What is your immunity and tolerance level?
Okay.
How stable is your mental state?
Yeah.
These factors decide the speed of healing. So I will never say it's slow. It is very much time based and intelligently time based science. So if you come at 30%, you will get the result in such a short time. If you come with 100%, you need to wait, which is going to happen in the same in allopathy also. But the thing is, what people think is, how do they relate healing to? They come with a pain. That's when people come to you. And when the pain is gone, they disappear. You ask any physician, you write a medicine to them, you tell them, come back after 1 month. If there's no pain, they won't care. They won't come back.
Yeah.
So, now
the
patient follow-up in India is very bad.
Yeah.
Because they understand disease.
Yeah, I'm also guilty of that.
Yeah. So they think the disease is treated when pain is gone.
Yeah.
That's the specialty of warm country people. All of them are physicians themselves. So they always advise you, if you tell them I have a sore throat, take this and take that. And these are the people, I know many of my patients, they save the prescriptions. And next time they have the same kind of pain, they just take the same prescription without consulting you.
Yeah.
These kind of special conditions are also there. And then what I wanted to say is, so they will think like you come to me, for example, with a pain. And the pain is on the knees. Okay, now I know it is what kind of arthritis, rheumatoid, osteo, or gouty arthritis, and I start treating you, let's say. And now I'll tell you, come back next month because I know there is, the second level of treatment that needs to be done. And you'll be like, okay, doctor. And what happens? You go home and the pain is gone and you think your problem is solved. Now, when I ask you to come back, you won't. You're like, pain is gone, problem is solved. Now, if I give you a painkiller or a kashayam, it doesn't matter. Because for you, I give you a painkiller and you feel relief. You think the disease is gone. But painkiller has nothing to do with any disease condition in the body. What does the painkiller do? It goes and freezes the pain receptor in your brain. So you don't sense pain anymore. But the reason why the pain is there, which could be an inflammation or a wound, is still there, happy and fresh. But you think there's no pain, so my problem is sorted out. So that is why people say Ayurveda takes time.
Okay.
Because they consider allopathic way of pain management as the treatment of a disease, as the eradication of a disease. That's a standard understanding. So it's not about the way allopathy treats rheumatoid conditions. How many conditions do you know where they've been treated completely and the disease has been eradicated? Very few. If you look at the research papers, you'll see Ayurveda always has a dominant hand.
And
So-
I also just want to add that this is something I've heard where, unlike allopathy, you don't go to the doctor when you fall sick, but the ideal way is to go every time the season changes, even if
Yes.
you're healthy.
Yes.
So,
Exactly. So it's like, the understanding of the patients has to be a little improvised so that it gets easier in the long run. So Ayurveda is not slow. It's like on time, on speed. So it's just the
It's
people
just the
who
speed is depending on a lot of factors, as you suggested.
Yes. So it's the people's brain who needs to speed up, technically.
Patients need to be proactive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody wants one-click solution. Just
That's
click
the thing.
and done.
That's the millennial thing.
Yeah.
So they don't want to work or go through the painful process of getting well. That's why they say it is slow. But you look at the box of medicines that they eat since 20 years, they don't have an answer, okay? Like, why are you eating this for 20 years? No answer. That's the difference.
So there's another internet news that Ayurveda has no side effects at all. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that again, internet is usually stupid, no?
Yeah.
So Ayurveda has side effects. Huh? If you, like for example, if you overdose a laxative herb, a common laxative herb is Triphala.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you overdose it, then what happens? You get diarrhea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it's not a stupid magical wand or just a philosophy. It has side effects. It's completely a common sense based science. So the use of a medication at the wrong time in the wrong person in the wrong dose.
So everything should be like based on the prescription by a doctor.
Always.
Mhm.
And like in the difference between Ayurveda and allopathy in terms of prescription would be they have their drugs standardized based on symptoms, body weight of the patient as well, and the intensity of the condition. So symptoms and the body weight are the two main criterias. And for example, headache, it's a standard prescription that you find. But in Ayurveda, the kind of headache that the same person gets in different seasons vary. So our prescriptions vary for the same disease in the same person and definitely in 5 people around. So it's very difficult to find a standardized prescription for one condition in Ayurveda for people around. So it's always good to not reuse the Ayurvedic prescription, but to always meet the doctor in person, discuss the problem, even if it's a relapse, and then take what they prescribe you.
So don't save your prescriptions.
Yes.
Just
Number one.
after
And,
buying the medicine, tear it and throw it away.
not necessary. Keep it. Don't self-medicate yourself.
Yeah.
You just bring the prescription back to the doctor when needed. And don't buy these counter superfood drugs like ashwagandha. Just buy and eat it at home. Shatavari, just buy and eat it at home. Brahmi, just buy and eat as much as you want. So don't do all these kind of things. And kurkuma, super herb. So let's have 0.5 kilogram every day. No, please don't overdose drugs. Because like herbal or non-herbal, they all have their effect in good and bad ways. So always make sure that you have the advice of an expert personally before you start trying out any system of medicine. And it's always good to avoid Googling or writing a text message to your doctor explaining your symptoms. Try to meet them personally as much as possible.
What if you do overdose of Chyawanprash?
You will have a urinary tract infection. Your urine burns like hell. I also, my professor's best friend during his college days used Chyawanprash as a jam base for bread.
Oh my god.
Always tells this story to us. So, it's a very interesting story. So, Chyawanprash for us is a rasayana. It's an aphrodisiac. It's a special kind of medicine which needs to be used in specific conditions. And the strict rules of intake is told. This much quantity has to be taken along with adjuvants. Like milk, for example, warm water. So the adjuvant is specifically mentioned that you take this thingy only with this thing, And so one of his friends during his medical school days started eating Chyawanprash like a jam because it's tasting very yummy. So he takes 2 slices of bread, hostel kids and men. So started applying layers of homemade Chyawanprash on the bread which his mom gave him during his holidays, like his hostel days. And then started eating it for breakfast. So after a week, he started having burning urine. So what did he do? He went to the hospital, the university hospital, gave his urine sample there. It's government hospital in India those days, like 30 years ago. And somehow his urine sample got messed up, like interchanged with another patient. So this they didn't know. So the next day he went to collect the urine test report, and the result came out pregnant. So this dude was so much in shock. So when there's so much pain when you urinate, your logic won't work for a moment. He was so much in shock, and then sir, my professor was there, he just looked at the report and he understood it, somebody else's sample got messed up. And then they went back, changed it, and then they found out it's severe urinary tract infection. Because bread is not an adjuvant mentioned in the textbooks to take Chyawanprash. So yeah, so even if it's Chyawanprash, like it's always good to talk to an expert before you use it. Like you do with any other thing. Like you buy a device, you always check the user manual. So in Ayurveda medications, nobody even bothers about user manual. So it's always good to take advice of an expert before urine samples get messed up.
Yeah,
That's true.
that was an interesting story. Yeah, so that ends the first session.
Okay, Sushant, that was the first part of the
Discussion.
discussion.
Podcast. Episode.
Yes.
We are listing synonyms here.
Yes, Shruja here, and I am continuing with the second part of the discussion. Well, I read a few things about Ayurveda before trying to come up with good questions. So my questions might be not so dummy.
Okay.
But I will just give an overview of my thinking, or let's say my research about Ayurveda, my dummy research about Ayurveda for our listeners. So the main idea behind Ayurvedic philosophy is that all living beings are made of combination of 5 basic elements. So the fire, water, space, earth and air. And based on the compositions of these elements, we classify people into 3 doshas, right? Vata, pitta or kapha. So it is said that the prakriti or the nature of a person is guided by the doshas, like which is the dominant form of energy in a person. So now the question follows. Like this was the precursor that was needed for the context that was needed for the questions. So my first question is, what's the relationship between the heart pulse rate and the doshas?
Maybe just one suggestion before that is, do you want to give a quick, like in 2 lines, if you just have to summarize what is a dosha to somebody who's like completely new? Is that a good description?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So how is the pulse rate related to your doshas?
Or when you do the nari
Pulse diagnosis.
Yeah, pulse diagnosis, do you try to find out the dosha of a person?
Yes.
So there must be a final or there must be a direct relationship between them.
Actually, of course, see, like you said, every function in a human body is controlled by 3 humors. They're actually biointelligences, like the 3 main spectrum of biointelligence activities in your body, inside your body. For example, one is movement. So you have the peristalsis movement, you're breathing in and out, your eyes are opening and closing, your muscles move, your nervous system conduct electrical activity. Then pee pee poo poo, all the excretory materials are being made and pushed out of the system. Blood is circulating, lymph is circulating around you. So all these movements are controlled by an intelligence mechanism. They do not intercede and interrupt with each other. When they do, you have a problem. And the pace of the traffic in each system is regulated throughout your life. It has to move in this range, in this intensity. Each activity inside you. Even if you take a cell and look at it under a microscope, you see the particles moving. So movement is one biohumor, an intelligence that your body controls inside you, from cell to tissues to structures to organs to systems. The next one is transformation, all kinds of chemical reaction controlled by the hormones from each glands. So everything changes. Blood is changing, lymph is changing, food, the form of food changes. What you eat is not what coming out. Your skin changes, your muscles change. So that transformation and transaction is the next intelligence that your body controls. So cell reactions, cellular activities, all kinds of biotransformation is the next energy. You can call it energy or a force, which you call as pitta. The first one was vata. The third one is all kind of compactness, structure and nutritional protection. So you have a lot of fluid systems inside you covering each and every organ, structure and tissue. For example, cerebrospinal fluid, pericardial fluid, peritoneal fluid, synovial joint fluids. What do? They have all this fighter cells, in simple words, that prevents an infection from entering the structure, the tissue or an organ, and nurtures that particular site and maintains the humid levels in the body. So this is the third intelligence called kapha. So they are structural and functional humors. They control all structural activities and functional activities inside a human body. We're not talking about higher dimensions, that's too much. But inside a human body, these activities are going on a day-to-day basis. Now, they do give so these humors are not visible. You cannot smell them, taste them, touch them, see them or hear them. But you analyze the optimization in performance based on certain parameters of their activities. So these expressions in the physiology and anatomy are coded to find out if each humor is performing its job well. So for this we have 8 parameters. We call them the Ashtasthana Parikshas. So there are 8 tools of diagnosis which helps to find out what humor of the 3, movement, transaction or nourishment, is not working properly. One among that 8 diagnostic systems is called pulse diagnosis, where you take your radial pulse, usually the radial artery pulse in both hands, and find out what humor is undergoing an imbalance. Now, why pulse diagnosis is so important? Well, it's as important as all the 8 of them, all the 8 types of diagnosis. But then Ayurveda defines human body as that which makes sounds. So the sign of life, one sign of life is production of sound. There are different kind of sounds in your body. The pulse is also a sound. It's a vibration. It's a throb. Now, you breathe in and out. Your doctor checks your lungs. He observes the sound. Then your heart, you observe the sound. And then the digestion, you observe the sound. So different parts of your body's functional meridians are understood or comprehended in terms of the efficacy, the intensity, volume and the efficacy and the rhythm of the sound that it produces. So you trace an abnormality in the sound, in the rhythm or in the intensity or in the consistency, anything. Then you know that somewhere the function is not happening properly. That's what you try to do in pulse. You track the volume, the intensity, the count, the velocity and the rhythm of the sound that comes from your body.
And it is different for each.
Yes, it is different for Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So you have parameters where they say if each of the element is normal, then the sound is like this. If it's abnormal, the sound is like A, B, C, D, based on the problem you have. So, yeah, it's simple.
That was comprehensive.
Well, that was very comprehensive. Yes, thanks for that answer. So, my second question is, do people with different classifications, do they prefer different kinds of profession?
Well, okay. So, the dominance of each element in a person, vata, pitta or kapha, the three biohumors we spoke about, they're determined by the genetics of each person, the father cell and mother cell, So, each of us do have all three of them necessarily, but one or two would have its dominance. So, basically, by the word constitution or prakriti, we mean the mental, which includes emotional and cognitive, and the physical behavior or traits of personality of a person. This is the basic meaning of constitution. Now, if it is a vata person, he or she is expected to behave in a certain way. In simple words, you can say as unpredictable as wind. Yeah? And if it's a pitta dominant person, they're expected to physically and mentally behave or possess the traits of fire, which is like go up and burn the whole thing down, And then kapha are people, the downward flowing energy of water. The people whose physiology and mental dynamics goes in the direction of like slow downward flowing, stagnancy. So they are expected to show some traits, but it's not necessarily confined by the choices of their career. But if you see, the people who really make mark in creative arenas of life are the people who are dominated with vata, because they are really curious, they like the chase of unknown, and they like creativity.
Bitcoin.
I have a lot of
Yes, so the creative superstars are usually vata inside, vata dominant personalities. Now, if you look at the people who are in the management, administrative, educational sectors, like public speaking and things, pitta, because they like that perfection, that plan, organization, finding the answer for a question, the hard work, the commanding power, the limelight of it. They like all that. So that's usually pitta people, the stardom groups. And then when you look into when you look into all these human science experts, for example, great psychologists, great humanitarians, they are more or less kapha people. Humanitarian, the motherliness, the philanthropists are usually kapha people, because they have that thing, like the everlasting compassion for the good of mankind. So these are those category of people. So of course the doshas do have an influence in definitely the way of you living your life, be it your career choices, your financial freedom choices, your life choices, relationship choices. All of it does have an influence of each doshas or the personality traits of your prakriti. But I've also seen exceptions. So I wouldn't say the prakriti or the vikriti is the only criteria that makes you a successful person in any arena of your life. It comes from effort and hard work. But your prakriti is an advantage. It's like a cash-in, a trump card that you can play based on choosing your career.
People always get very surprised with some of my creative ideas, because for me it just comes very easily. And people always like, where did you get that
Yes,
from?
so it definitely is an add-on. It's like a booster, but it's not the only criteria, because we have so many dimensions beyond body that comprehends the entire personality of a human being. Factors like intellect, memory, mind, processing capacity, so all this comes into play. But doshas are definitely a trump card for your career choices.
Right. So if, for example, I am a kapha by your description, if I prefer to go into a creative field, then can I make some changes in my lifestyle or my diet and change the proportions of the energy in myself?
You cannot.
I cannot. Right?
Yeah, it's basically, see, what you're made up of. It's like if you're an American, you are an American. No matter you go and stay in Japan, dress like a Japanese, you're not going to be a Japanese. So it's like that. But it does not say that you cannot be creative. A Kapha person can be extremely creative, no doubt in that. But there should be more effort from a Kapha person than a Vata person who will spontaneously come up with mind-blowing things. And for a Pitta person to be creative takes a little bit work, because they have to like switch off some dominant parts in their head, then switch to the other side. So more than making tough choices, I would say your choices are basically trained. So you want to be something, you train yourself into it. A person who has an inborn talent is just ahead of you in time, but it's not the ultimate reason to not join the race.
That's a great answer. Nice. You actually answered 3 of my questions in one single answer. So
good to know. Good. Time for food.
Yes. So I think I only have one question left. What is the difference that you have observed while practicing Ayurveda in Europe when compared to India? Because the way I see it, the Ayurveda is just the set of observations that people made in ancient times, but those observations were made in India, right? And the climate and all the conditions in Europe is totally different than our subcontinent. Then all the observation in India in Ayurveda, are they relevant also in Europe?
How many seasons do you see in Europe?
But I mean,
how many seasons do you see in Europe?
We still see the same 3 or 4 seasons. But
there are 8 in Ayurveda.
How many seasons do you have in India?
Somewhere.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm
gonna
feel dumb after this.
Somewhere.
6 seasons in India, and Ayurveda speaks more than 4 seasons. So it is not a science that was written by Indians in India. It is a global science that was written by different sages from different parts of the world. We even believe there are people from California who had come, and they just sat down together in the Himalayan region and wrote the whole science. So it speaks about more seasons than in Europe. It speaks about the kind of land, the changes in the land. It speaks about different kinds of geography, different kinds of biology, different kinds of human nature. So the only difference is when it comes to using the herbs, because the materia medica, the pharmacopoeia of Ayurveda, is very restricted to Indian herbs as of now. That is not because the science is incompetent. It is because, see, the literature that we have for Ayurveda is just 5% of what was available before the Nalanda and Takshashila was burned.
Oh.
So the current Ayurvedic system is just running on the 5% of literature that is available, out of which hardly 1% is understood or decoded. We still have the line of books of Lekhutrais and following books that have not even been read by the Ayurvedic experts. So we only stick to 3 books, out of which most of us learn half of 1 book in the whole lifetime, and we run the whole show with that. So people who have learned at least 15 or 20 textbooks of Ayurveda, for them the whole globe is the play of Vata, Pitta and Kapha. All that is living has these 3 elements in them, because all that is living came from nature, and nature is composed of the permutation and combination of these 5 molecules. So as long as there's life on planet, there is Vata, Pitta, Kapha. As long as there's Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the rule is same. Within which they explain about individuality of land, of race, of geography, biology, season, climate, genetics and everything. So it is a global yet very individual specific science.
Wow.
Just one question. So a winter in India would be different than a winter in Germany, or would you is that also considered, or?
What's the winter range of Germany here? The temperature range of winter?
Go
It's
to
a
minus 10 maybe.
minus 10 to maybe 2 degrees.
And what's the winter range of the glaciers of Himalayas? The Himalayan states, Uttarakhand, Siachen, Upper
Siachen would be
Kashmir.
minus
Yeah,
50 or
more
something,
than
right?
this. Yeah, Siachen would probably be
Yeah.
more than this.
Minus what?
50.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Siachen is the coldest
Okay.
recorded winter in the world.
40s,
Expect
minus
that.
40s. For
Yeah.
I should expect
Yeah, so there is that difference.
Mm.
So would that be considered in your diagnosis? Or
Of course,
Like,
of course.
okay.
See, winter, when you say winter, you and me are thinking about it in terms of a South Indian winter, when it's 25 degrees and you feel cold. But we are talking about the North Indian winter.
Yeah.
As north you go in India, you see the exact winter like in Germany, the European winter. Nothing is different there. Like the higher you climb up the Himalayan ranges, every geography matches. So, like I told you, it's a science that was mainly written throughout the ranges of Himalayas. Also, we have South Indians who have written the books.
Mhm.
So you find the common nature of cold, warmth, spring, summer, rain, and in betweens in Ayurveda. So it's a long forgotten concept that Europe is cold and India is warm. No, India has more seasons than any other country in the world. It's a geographical speciality of the land.
So, do you find a particular classification, or for example, vata in colder regions, more vata people in colder regions?
Actually, it's not only based on that. They speak about kapha dominant land, vata dominant land, and pitta dominant land. Natural nature, like for example, if you take India, why coconuts are concentrated in Kerala belt, and why mustard is commonly available in northern belt. Why is rice a stable crop of south, and why is wheat a stable crop of north? Yeah, so seasons and geographical influence of Vata Pitta Kapha. So each season is dominated by either of the three doshas and they have their classical features. Each land of geography is dominated by the three doshas and they have their specific features based on which the people will behave this way, they will eat these kind of food, they have the spectrum of diseases. It's all told in the book. So it's quite easy.
From your experience, as a practitioner, what was the difference that you found in Europe?
Well, I would say, see, it was not something new for me because I studied in Rishikesh. I was in the Himalayan region for some part of my life. So weather-wise and land-wise, I didn't notice big deal of difference. Like the rules of the climate is the same in the land. The diseases that you would find is typical. But then what you cannot say Indians are more healthy. They have the knowledge, but they don't respect the knowledge and they just follow what the West says is right. So Indians, since they do not honor the knowledge, they are not really very healthy nowadays. But when you come to Europe, they don't know many of the things. Like wisdom is not a part of their tradition. Their tradition speaks about war and pain. But we had the privilege of wisdom in our traditions, which we deliberately choose not to use anymore. But the Western people, their tradition doesn't speak so much about wisdom. That's why they have to come to East in search of peace and health and whatever. So intellectual autonomy is the main criteria that differentiates West from East. And I would say, in my clinical practice, what I've noticed is people in the West are not aware of the way of living life in a holistic aspect. So, because they don't know, they've done so many mistakes in their food habits and lifestyle. But at the same time, they're the most enthusiastic people who are in search of the truth. Which is not found in East, because when you have something in your home, you're really so chilled about it. Okay, one day we'll see. But when you don't have something, you set out on a journey to find it. That's what you see in the West. So, especially in Germany, it has the highest number of nutrition enthusiasts and yoga enthusiasts in the entire Europe. Because they're interested, they want to know. So they know what they're doing has some flaws in it. And they want to change and improve. So they're ready to put the effort to be a better person in terms of nutrition, lifestyle or stress management than they were yesterday. So that proactivity and intellectual autonomy are two factors that differentiates them. So I have seen lifestyle and nutritional and stress management disorders more in Europe, which definitely is going to be equivalent to India soon if the younger generation in India is not taking care of their wisdom that they've got from tradition. So that's the thing. So I wouldn't say it's different, but it is challenging here because you're coming with something that's not theirs yet. So to convince them that this works and it's good takes a little bit time. So that's the only thing, that the conviction part, talk and convince them that this is good, this is what your ancestors did, is a lot of effort. But in India you don't need to do that because they know it, most of them. So you just tell them do this, do this, do this. They do it or don't do it. But here, to make them do something, you really have to sit and convince them a lot. So that is something that I find quite challenging. But other than that, when they like what you say or they're convinced about what you say, they make sure they do it and they bring you great results. So their proactiveness is really high when it's compared to Indians.
This
They're
has
the
been,
ideal patients.
this has been my experience when teaching meditation also. Like in India, it's sort of part of our culture, and it's like even I was shocked when I was teaching that the way those European or German students were valuing it, it shook me, it like touched me, like even I was not giving it that much.
Yeah. So that's the thing, they're doing a lot of flaws because they don't know, and we're doing a lot of flaws after knowing a lot of things. So and when they want to change, they're in for it. So that's a typical quality of the cold country people, no? The survival spirit, the winning spirit is higher than the comfortable, easygoing, warm country people.
Looking at it.
So you see the warm country people quite lazy, they're like slow, laid back people, but the cold country ones are really survival spirit oriented.
So more pitta.
Yes.
Do you think that also explains why Indians, maybe on the sports arena, we like, especially cricket, is like, my dad used to say, okay, I'm not a cricket fan, but I'm quoting my dad here.
Olympics would be a good example.
It's like, our representation is not so much, in these high competitive arenas. Do you think this could be a factor over, one factor of course?
What could be a factor?
That
Laziness?
the colder people from colder areas have this more of a drive that can be useful.
Actually, your body is inside your mind. So your body, the neuropsychiatry has already done great researches on the limitless capacities of the muscular system of a body.
Okay.
That means it's designed in a way that you can lift a truck with just bare hands. But the limitations exist in the paradigms of your perception of mind. So if your mind doubts something, your body behaves that way. So it's not important that, of course, it's 10% of the truth that cold country people are more physically fit because they have to go out and get basic amenities from fire. So that's definitely going to make you fit, but it's not only the criteria.
It won't set you back, basically.
So you can be a warm country person and still be fit. But it's more work for a warm country person to be fit than a cold country person who by default does it.
But that is irrespective of whether the person is from vata, pitta or kapha in a warm country.
Yes.
Which one are you? Vata, pitta or kapha?
What do you think now?
Sushant, that's it. Yeah, what do you think?
Yes.
What do I think her dosha is? I think she's kapha.
That was my first opinion also.
So that means it's
now
wrong.
I was also going to say the same, but now I know it's
because
Because
kapha, what I have read is that tend to have a bit of a graceful movement and graceful talking, which vata like a bit jumpy and like a rough this thing. And whenever I met you first, even your style of speaking is like slow and like I get like very excited.
Kind of.
Exactly. So that's why I thought it was kapha.
So what's the answer?
I'm Pitta Vata. I don't think I have any trait except the laziness that's there, or I don't think I have any. proper kapha qualities.
Coming to what you said, like most of the wrestling people are from Russia, which are like
The
one of the
dominant
coldest
country. Yes.
things.
Yeah, my next question is regarding the research in Ayurveda. So, for example, in the conventional medical research, like many tests are done on lab rats, and the results are documented in numbers, and you have objective terms to measure the progress. Like how does it look like in Ayurveda?
The
How is
same.
the research?
We also
It's
do the
thing.
same. Yeah, the same government run standard factorial designs and experimental designs. So the research sector is like the modern research methodology sector. It's the same. But the struggle is that it's quite difficult to comprehend these Sanskrit words and their entire meanings to the modern vocabulary of parameters. So that's where they face a struggle, but the research is done in the same way.
But I had this question that if everything is already written in a text, like you've already said that in this country, vata, you have this arthritis, so this is the thing. It's already been written and it's been working because it's almost 6,000 years old. So is research conducted on that to prove like it works, or like
No, how do you
because what science does, I mean the conventional thing is you don't know before, so you put a hypothesis, you do some experiments, you test it, you look at the results, and if it answers the hypothesis, that that is the paradigm until somebody comes up with something which is unexplainable or offers more explanation.
Yeah, and here it's done to prove what is already told is right or wrong.
So it's like reverse methodology.
Yeah.
Reverse
Chinese
engineering.
people do reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for example, like considering that Ayurveda is a holistic approach with mind, body, and soul, like we can do these tests on the body part, right? How do you do the research in mind and soul part?
That's why there are very less research papers. Because that's where the struggle is, like you cannot fit the current vocabulary of research methodology into a science that has philosophical origin and speaks about dimensions that are yet to be discovered by modern sciences. So that's where they're struggling. They're not able to really correlate terminologies. Like even Vata, Pitta, Kapha, we still haven't found a correct correlation to them. Energy, force, humor are all just relative terminology. So because of the absence of that bridge between the vocabulary of the contemporary world and the world of Sanskrit, philosophical sciences, that's why there are no great researches yet on certain aspects. So it's just pilot studies.
Oh, so do you think to learn Ayurveda, learning Sanskrit is a prerequisite?
Always.
I know, like the entire thing is no. To learn this thing, the entire education should be in Sanskrit.
The more you know Sanskrit, the better an Ayurveda personality you are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you read somebody else's translation, and these are people whose mother tongue is not Sanskrit. So I am trying to translate a Malayalam text being a German after learning Malayalam and then translating. It's very different from a Malayali translating a book into another language. So I have seen in my practice that the more Sanskrit you know, the better access you have to your books, the better knowledge you have, and a better physician and a person you are.
And
So
is it true that the whole Materia Medica is written as a poem? That,
Yes.
Is it that only one book out of?
No, all books are written as a poem. Thousands and lakhs, millions of verses.
Wow.
And another question is, like you said, 95% of the literature has been lost. Do you think it can be rediscovered?
Well, it was not invented.
Yeah, exactly.
It was downloaded by the brains of some extra intelligent people. So if we have such kind of a group again, then definitely maybe one day in Himalayas or Alps, we can re-access the whole resources. Yes.
Go for it, bro.
In your free time at uni.
Universal basic income.
And what are the common questions that people from Europe ask you?
What is the most common question?
Most common. or most repeated?
No,
You
let's
sense
say,
a theme in the
what is the most common question? Just so that you can answer only one thing.
Why cannot I do this? It's the most common question that I get.
Why cannot I do this?
Yeah, like I tell them don't eat this, don't do that.
Ah,
And they're like, why? Why is the common question I get in Europe?
And in India?
India, actually people really don't ask the doctors anything, no? Especially why is not a question you will find doctors in India. You tell take this medicine, they're like, yes doctor, okay.
Yeah.
Come after 1 week, okay.
Yeah.
They're very compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here you tell them anything, they're why should I take it? So why is a
Yeah.
question that I face every time in Germany.
Okay, so we have last question?
you have 6 minutes.
Yeah. And 2 major takeaways for dummy listeners like us. Not him.
Not him, yeah. He's in a different
I'm 10% less
different
than-
league.
Come back and meet me for a consultation.
Yeah, so when will you
Number
be here?
one.
No, we'll have another podcast when we come back.
And then what?
No, I mean simple like two
Two
things
takeaways.
maybe that's something they can change in their life today, or
Something-
something they can start paying attention to more.
Like,
or something.
Okay, when you say holistic,
Depends on what
what
do
does
you do.
holistic mean? That people can make a change in their lives at a
Yeah,
low,
small.
small scale.
Yeah, so like identifying how much do you invest in your wellness, in your well-being. So that's one question you can take away. And the areas of investment is your physical fitness, which comes through your nutrition and your lifestyle. Then your mental fitness, your emotional fitness, and your intellectual fitness to start with. How fit are you? How do you define
So,
fitness?
How do you measure emotional fitness and
Yeah, so you find out and come.
So everyone has,
Homework.
everyone has their own metrics, I think.
Yeah, so how do you
I
say
didn't even
your
know there are
emotion-
metrics for these things.
Yeah.
I mean, you can define your own metrics, right?
So are you emotionally stable personality? Yes or no? How do you say you are?
No, I say, for example, let's say you decide a metric today. Like you measure yourself according to that metric and you write it down today. And then tomorrow you make some changes and measure yourself again according to that metric. And if you are improving, that means,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
decide a
At
reference
the
for
moment,
yourself.
it will be a relative measure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. We have time
That's the
for
only takeaway, your investment. How much do you invest in your wellness?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a good question. Actually.
Are you the center of tension or center of relaxation? Not now, you take away.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it for.
Yeah,
That's it.
That is it for now.
I also think like in our culture we have this practice of introspection, meditation and all, right? Because in Ayurveda demands you to be introspective.
Yes, yes.
But like in Western countries, they might not see it this way, right?
They want to be an expert in one field, and if they have some health problems, they'll go to the expert who's a doctor to fix them.
Mm.
This was not
Introspection is the beginning of all kind of
Discoveries.
discoveries.
And you actually
need to
can't
know
force
more.
it. It has to come from within. Like you
Yeah.
have to have certain experiences in life that will make you okay. Why is this happening? Why is this pattern repeating?
Mm.
You can't really blame someone for like not having that wisdom.
Mm. Go on.
Yes.
And we are ending.
Yeah.
Bye.
That was a typical Pitta person being on to the point.
Yeah.
I think I speak for everyone when I say that it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoyed
You
learning
have to say
something
this,
new.
only then I give the next one.
Yeah, and we would love to have more if you're open to it. And I think we can explore like different topics in Ayurveda.
Because
And
there
maybe
are-
if you also have more time, we actually plan to do like long format podcasts, like 2.5 hours of just talking to
Come
someone.
to Hamburg.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Or maybe online also we can see
When?
something we can do.
we can also do Skype thing if you.
Yeah, we'll have to check the audio quality though for Skype.
But if she's up to it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, there are some questions which we still haven't asked.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
thank you for coming. Thank you for the questions, and thank you for listening if you are listening. And until next time, goodbye and good day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yes.